Hello my friends and welcome to this channel. If you're working with Supabase, you should have a similar workflow to GitHub, meaning you should do your changes in local instance, and then when it's working, you should push it to prod. And today I will show you how to achieve that, either you're working with a hosted Supabase instance or with a self-hosted Supabase instance. I will show you everything. So let's go. So first, let's create a simple Next.js app. Everything I will show you will be concerning the Supabase workflow. I will show you it in a Next.js app, but you can adapt on every framework you use. Now it's done. Let's open cursor in this app. And there we go. Now let's open a terminal. Okay, so now as you can see, I don't care about the app itself. I care about the Supabase workflow. So for now, we just have a simple Next.js app. You could create a Next.js app with Supabase. I think it's -e with Supabase. I'm not sure. I never do that because it doesn't fit what I want to do. But let's just for now create a simple Supabase instance locally. So before using the commands I will show you, you will need to install the Supabase CLI on your machine. So if you're on Mac, Linux, or everything, you have to do this command. So brew install Supabase tab Supabase, etc. And if you already have it, sometimes you should run this command to make sure you have the latest stable version. And for me, since I already have it and upgraded it, I can start using the CLI commands. So the first command you should do on every project is just the Supabase init. Supabase init. And that will, no, I don't use Dino. So that will create here a Supabase folder. So in this Supabase folder, we have the temp folder and the config toml. So here, I won't go too much in detail on this file, but here is everything you should see if you want to do some changes. For example, if you want to change the port of something, if you want to enable real-time studio, etc., every configuration you want to apply on your local instance, you should do it on this file. But that's not what we are here for. We are here to just see the workflow on the prod and local database. Okay, so now I want to run it because I have this file, but I don't actually have a local instance. So to do that, you just run Supabase start. By doing that, it will create a Supabase instance on your local machine. So it's using Docker for that. So make sure you don't have like a very old machine because it will be consuming some memory. Okay, so it finished. And now we have a bunch of information. So once again, I won't go too much in detail, but if you want to develop locally and you want to use some, let's say, anon key or service work key or your bucket key, etc., these are all the information you will need. So for now, all I need is the studio URL, but all I need is the port because this IP actually is my local host. And here is the Supabase localhost 54323. This is my new project. So this is the local project. In my tables, I have nothing. This is a fresh new Supabase instance locally. But that's not what we want. We want our prod version to be duplicate on our local instance. So let's create a hosted new project. So project name will be Supabase tuto. Let's say YouTube Postgres. No, sorry, YouTube Postgres. Okay. Let's make it in France. I will delete it so I don't need to save any login. Okay, so let's wait a bit for the project to be set up. Okay, so while the project is being set up, what we need to do actually is to log in to Supabase through our CLI. To do that, just run Supabase login and enter. It will open a new browser window with a code. I will copy it and come back to my CLI, paste the code, and now I'm logged in. And why I need to log in? Because now my CLI knows my actual account. And what I just need to do now is just run Supabase link. And it will show you every one of my projects. So this is my this is a project I have, and this is the Supabase. Sorry, I made a typo. Actually, that's not tuto, that's tutup. But this is my project. So I can just link doing this, or I can do it another way. So let's clear. So that's a way to link to your project, but I won't show you, I will show you another way to link to your project. So let's go back to our dashboard. Here in the project setting, you have your project ID. So I will copy it, and in my Supabase CLI, I will just do Supabase link and -- project ref, and now I passed my project ID. And by doing that, I'm linking to my actual project. So it won't ask me which project because I just told him. Okay, so Now I need to enter my database password because it will connect to my database. So let me write it, YouTube-Postgres, and that's it. I finished the Supabase link. So let's clear it. So now that I'm linked, I can actually copy my prod instance. So since it's a new project, I don't have anything to copy. So let's refresh. Let's create a new table. Let's say subscribers. Okay, let's say it's good like that. It's a bit slow. That's why I almost never use the Supabase hosted instance. But let's wait a bit and I will see you just after. Okay, it's done, but okay, let's actually start again because it didn't write any column. Seems like the Supabase website is having a bad time. That actually wasn't planned. That wasn't a part of the tutorial. Okay, so it finally worked. I don't know what happened to the Supabase website, but okay, now this is our prod instance. And to differentiate it on my local instance, for you to not be confused, I will set it into light mode. Okay, so now where are we in? So this is my local instance. The white Supabase is my local instance, and the dark Supabase will be every time our prod instance. So that's our hosted prod instance, which is very laggy, but we don't care. Now let's go back to our project. I am linked to the prod version, which contains one table, but I don't have it on my local instance. I can't use it. I can't do some changes because it's a new instance. So what I want, it's the same workflow as GitHub. I want to pull my prod database to my local database. To do that, since I'm linked, I just have to do Supabase pull, a DB pull, sorry. And it's pulling my database. Okay. Yes, I want to update remote migration, and now it's good. If I refresh, I have nothing. Why do I have nothing? So what did it do? And why do I have nothing? Because what it did when I run Supabase DB pull, it created a new folder migrations here with a new file remote schema. And this file is actually a SQL file that we don't want to run manually, but all the information, as you can see, it's the, where is it? Create table, public subscriber. That's my prod table. And what do we want? We want to apply it. So every time you want to apply a change, what you have to do is just Supabase DB reset. And by doing that, it will reset my local instance using every configuration I have here. And migrations is a part of configurations. So it will apply this schema on my local instance. And as we will see here on my local, the white one is the local. When it will be done, okay, it's done. When I refresh, I have my subscriber table. Okay, so now let's continue with a self-hosted Supabase instance on the prod version instead of a hosted instance. So now let's get rid of everything. So let's clear. Now I want to stop my local instance to get a new fresh local Supabase. But I did some changes. As you can see, I have a migration folder, etc. What I need to do is just Supabase stop. If I do that, it won't actually work well because it will cache the changes that I made. What I need to do, if I would just want to get rid of everything, is just write no backup. By doing that, I will create a new fresh Supabase once again. And now what I also need to do is to unlink my Supabase account. So Supabase unlink. Okay, I am not linked to my Supabase project anymore. Now I can just delete it. Yes, move to trash. And now I can just repeat this process, Supabase init. Supabase start, and that should be a fresh new Supabase local instance. Okay, so now let's look at it. Supabase, there is no migration file. Let's refresh our local instance, the white one, you remember. And as you can see, I have no more table on my local instance. Now let's create a new Supabase self-hosted instance. For that, I'm using Codify because it's very easy to manage all my projects, but you can run a Supabase self-hosted instance through just Docker. So let's add a new resource, Supabase. Okay, so what I need to do is to save these credentials to access my Supabase Studio self-hosted. So this is, I saved it on a file, you can't see it, but I can. Okay, so now let's deploy, and I will show you there is a small configuration we need to do to make it work actually, because in Codify it's not really just one click and go. We have to do a little change, and I will show you which change you have to do. Okay, so now my Supabase instance is running on Codify, and let's visit the dashboard. So now I will use the credential that I saved just here, up, and I'm very small. I'm on my prod self-hosted instance. That's why it's dark. Remember, this is my local instance. This is my prod instance. It's also a fresh new. So let's create a table. Let's say subscriber. Let's say actually self-hosted subscriber. Let's create it. It's way faster than on the hosted part. Okay, so now what we want to do. As I told you, we can't link our CLI to our self-hosted instance. And for that, we will need our URL, because the URL we will need is something like that. This is a classic Postgres database URL. And what we will need to change is here, this is the password of our database. And this part is our database on the port it's running. But the issue we have on Codify is actually, where is it, Codify, is that our database is not open to public. So Supabase instance, the Supabase instance on Codify can access to our database. That's not an issue, but we can't access it from the outside. There is an option here to make it publicly available. It doesn't work for me. I don't know why. Maybe I'm doing something bad. I don't know, but it doesn't work. What I need to do is just here to edit, I will show you again, edit the compose file, because the Supabase stack is actually running on a Docker compose file with all these services. And what we need to do to open it to the public is just to find the Supabase DB. So here, the Supabase DB container here, that's our database. And as you can see, it's the Postgres database. And what we need to do is open the port to the public. To do that, we need to write ports, and I will write it and I will tell you what does it mean. 5438 and 5432. So what does it mean? It means that the ports on this database, this is the internal port of the database, 5432. This is the classic Postgres port, but inside the containers. So inside the container, you can have actually any ports, it doesn't matter. But outside the container, you can't have conflicts between ports. So and what this line does is telling Docker, this port, this inside port, the 5432, must be matched to an outside port, 5438. That's this one I decide. It's 5438 because for the sake of this tutorial, I wrote some ports. I could say 548, it doesn't matter, but I will show you, we have another thing to configure. And okay, that's it. So I save and I restart. And while it's restarting, I will tell you another thing, because what we need to do then is the URL we will have will be, I will copy it. The URL will be this, but as I told you, it's the port will be 5432. What IP will it be? For me, it's my VPS IP. I will just pass my VPS IP. So that's the IP and the port my database is running on. So that's my VPS IP, the port, and now I need to change the password. So let's go back to Codify. Okay, let's remove that, the Postgres password. So I will copy this and enter it here. And that's my DB URL. You have to, here, just after Postgres, you have to write your Postgres, your database password. Then there is the @ we can't already see it here. And then you have the IP and the port it's running on. If I do that, it won't do anything. It won't work because that's not a real command. That's the URL I want to keep just here because I will use it just later. If you do that, it's not complete for you. It's from me because I already did the other change, but what you need to do is open the port on the public, because if your VPS is well configured, you have a firewall. And if you have a firewall well configured, you won't open every port to the public. So this port, the 5438, we need to open it to the public. And as I told you, I already did that part. So I opened the 5438 to the public. I actually did it for the sake of this tutorial. I will delete this rule just after, but you can edit and just custom to say your IP only can access this port, and that's what you should do. But for now, we won't care about this part. But you need to open this port, otherwise your firewall will block you and you won't be able to connect your CLI to your Supabase self-hosted instance. Okay, so now we have our self-hosted database URL. What we need to do is do actually the same. So remember what command we used. This was here, Supabase DB pool. But since we were linked, we didn't have to provide any URL. Let's see what happens if I don't provide any URL. I will do this and it will tell me you are not linked. That's normal because I unlinked. So now let's run it again, but I will need to provide the URL. So now I do db-url and I provide this very long URL of my database, and that should work. And that is working, my friends. And on this part, if now you have some errors to unable to connect to your database, that should come from either your database port is not open or your VPS firewall is blocking. So check everything, but it should work. So update migration table, yes. And now we have it. So let's see, it created a new folder migration, remote schema, and we should have our, where is it? Yeah, self-hosted subscribers. That's our self-hosted instance we have. Okay, so now let's look at our local database. And as you can see, and as you know, we don't have any data because we didn't reset. So let's reset Supabase DB reset. And we should have an error, and I will tell you what is the error and how to fix it. And that's the error. We have an issue with the Supabase role admin, and this error, we didn't have it on the hosted instance. Why is that? Because the Supabase CLI and the Supabase hosted instance don't have Supabase admin user anymore on the Postgres database. Because before there was a Supabase admin that was like the super admin on the Postgres database, and the self-hosted instance still have it. So when I did the Supabase DB pool, what happened is this. I have the owner to Supabase admin. But remember, the CLI, which is the local instance, don't have this. The CLI is running with the Postgres user. And the hosted version also is running with the Postgres user. That's why we didn't have this issue before. Since my prod database is self-hosted, I still have the Supabase admin as the super admin. What I need to do, if you have a very long file, is to change every Supabase admin to just Postgres. So I will do that. I only have one operation, but if you have like a very long database, you can do this on just one click, change Supabase admin to Postgres. And let's do this. Let's save this file and now just run Supabase DB reset once again and it will work. As you can see, now it worked. And if I go to my local database, remember it's the white, and I refresh, I have my self-hosted subscribers. Okay, that's the first part. That's how you pull your database, either hosted or self-hosted. Okay, so now let's say we want to do some changes. We want to add, let's say, a name of a subscriber, which will be a text. And okay, let's save it. And we have it. That's our local instance, the white one. Okay, we did some changes, obviously more changes, but we need to push it to prod. How do we do that? In GitHub, we know how to do it, but in Supabase, how we do this? For that, what you need to do is just, so let's clear this, is just to run db diff. So db Supabase db diff. And what it will do, it will act like your GitHub workflow, which is git add and then git commit, because we will do two commands in one. So with dbdiff, it will just diff the changes since the last migrations. It will read this file, and what it will do, it will look at our local instance here and say, okay, what changes were made between this file and the actual local instance. If I do that, I only will have the changes, but I need to save these changes. To do that, I need to write -f to say save to a file, what name, and the name will be add name column. Okay, and now what it will do, as I told you, it will create a new file here, a new migration file named add name column, containing all the changes that I made. And there we go. And every file on the migration folder contains a timestamp here to just know the order it's made. So as we can see, I didn't make so much changes, just add a column name, but I need to push it. And to do that, I need to run Supabase db push and the db URL. But since I don't want to rewrite it, I will just use the previous command, which were here, and I will replace db pull by db push. Remember, Supabase db push, the URL, which is very long, but it's my self-hosted instance, so I need to provide the URL. Remember, if you are on the hosted instance, you don't need to provide the db URL. All you need to do is just Supabase db push. Since you're linked, it will automatically push your changes to the prod version. Okay, so let's push it. And now it's telling me, do you want to push these migrations? And that's the add name column migration. And yes, that's exactly what I want to do. And as we can see, we have an error because we are not allowed to write it. Since I told you there is a conflict between the Supabase admin and the Postgres user. So what we need to do is go to our self-hosted instance, the prod version, and write this. So alter table, this is our table. Actually, we should write it on every table we have. Let's say owner to Postgres and run it, run selected. Okay, now it should work because what did we just do? Actually, the table on the self-hosted instance was owned by Supabase admin. And when we wanted to push changes to it, we were acting as a Postgres user. But the Postgres user didn't have the authorization to do so. So now we will need to say our self-hosted instance that, okay, this Postgres user can do changes. So let's run this command again, and that should work. It worked. And as we can see now on our prod version, remember the dark theme is the prod version. In self-hosted subscribers, we have a new column name. And now we want to actually have some data. Let's add now some data. So on my prod version, I will add one subscriber. So this is Matthews, one of the first subscribers to my channel. And I will add it here, and we have it here. Okay, so let's say I have a bunch of data on my prod version. I want now to populate my local instance because my local instance here is still empty. And when we want to dev, we want some data to work with. And if we want to fetch our prod data, we need to do Supabase db dump, provide the URL, now provide the file it will be dumped, donc file name. And then what we need is just the data, because if we do that, it will dump the whole database, because the db dump is actually a Postgres command that dumps all the database. It's very useful when we want to do some backups, but now we just want the data. So -- data only. So that's the command, but I will just use the URL of the previous command because I don't want to just rewrite it. So let's do this. That's our previous command. I will edit. So not db push, but db dump. That's the db URL. And where do I want to write it? In the Supabase folder, and let's say datas.sql. Okay, and what did I want? I told you data only. Okay, by doing that, it will dump all my datas from prod version to here, and that's not supposed to happen because I forgot here to say it's a file name, and that should work. Okay, and it worked now. So that's all my data. That's not much, but where is Matthews? Here, I have one data. And now, how do we apply it? Let's try db reset, Supabase db reset. And actually, we have a little hint on what to do, but I want to show you why won't it work like that. Okay, so it's reset. Okay, so now let's see, I refresh and still nothing. Remember, the white one is the local one, and there is still nothing. So what should I do? Should I just copy this and write it in the SQL editor? No, that's not the good way to do it. As I told you, we have a hint. The hint is this line, no seed files matched pattern supabase/seed.sql. Because if we want to seed our database, so seed meaning to put some data in it, we need to provide a certain pattern. So as I told you, the config toml contains every configuration, and as you can see, the db seed is this. So it needs a seed.sql file to populate the database. So what we need to do, actually, the file datas.sql, we need to write seed.sql. And just by doing that, when we rerun the Supabase DB reset, it will work. Let's see if it worked. Let's refresh. And it worked. So that's how you dump your data from prod to your local instance to work with. But I don't recommend you to do that because that's not allowed. Actually, the privacy legislation doesn't allow you to do some development features on the actual user's data. You are not allowed to use users' email and users' name, etc. to do some local development. What you actually need to do is to write, still to have a seed.sql file and to write some data on it. But what I really recommend you to do to have some data to work with is to give your schema to, let's say, ChatGPT or any AI, to say, create me some data. It will create you a bunch of data based on your schema. You write the SQL command on this SQL editor, then you dump your local schema and your local data, and I will just tell you how. So let's delete the seed.sql here. And now let's actually write a new data. So let's say this I will delete. And what I want to do is insert a row, and let's say new sub. Let's save it. And what I want to do now is do the same Supabase db dump, but now I don't want to db dump my self-hosted instance. I want to db dump my local instance on the file supabase/seed.sql, and still I want the data only. And now we can see here I have, where is it? My new sub. And every time I will do my Supabase DB reset, it will populate with this file. So let's say a new sub from seed. Okay, let's clear it. Let's Supabase DB reset. Okay, so now let's go our local instance. Let's refresh, and new sub from seed. So that's exactly what you should do when you are working with some local data, some development data. Okay, now one more thing I want to show you. So let's say you're working with a team and someone made a change on the prod version. Remember, the dark theme is the prod version. So let's create a new table. Let's say a video. Okay, so let's save it. I created a new table, and you are working on your local database and you want to be up to date. So what you need to do, remember the command Supabase dbdiff. We will do the same, but with the URL. So, okay, let's clear this. Let's take back the, and let's take back the previous command with some URL, and we will need to say dbdiff. Since we are doing a dbdiff, what we need to provide is a file name. So f and the file name. So it's up to date. And it will diff the prod version to our local version. And it will do that with the last migration file. So since this change, what change is create table public video. And once again, now you know the deal. In our local instance, we don't have it. What we need to do, you know it, is just Supabase db reset to apply these changes. Now let's see our local instance. We have video, and we still have our subscriber new sub from seed because it's on the seed.sql file. And that's how you should work with Supabase. And one more warning for you, my friends, is when you're dealing with RLS, so where is it, database policies, when you're dealing with RLS on your local instance, sometimes, I don't know why, but sometimes there is issues. I still didn't figure out why, but when we do some changes, when we dbdiff, we have no errors, but when we reset, we have errors. I really don't know where it comes from, but that's why the process with dbdiff should be the same with your commits on GitHub. Every time you do a change on your database, on your local database, you should do a dbdiff, then a db reset to see if these changes have some issues or not. And that's the workflow you should use on your Supabase project. I hope it was clear. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing. We are almost 100. That means a lot to me. And see you in the next video.